Bam. Pow. Welcome back, everybody. I want to thank you for coming back to the channel. I want to thank myself for coming back to the channel. You know, I just got to take a break to let my hair grow every few months, basically, and then I'm back with you guys. So I wanted to talk about some recent pickups I made, some recent comic purchases, because I've had kind of a banner couple months, a really impressive, fun, cool time building my collection. Let's dive into the first couple picks, and we will talk about where I'm at in my collecting journey. The first one I want to talk about, and this is not that insane, not that impressive. It was not expensive at all, but it's Infinity Inc. number 14. This, let me get it a little bit better here. Yeah, this book is the first published cover art by Todd McFarlane. Now, if you know me, you know I'm a big Todd McFarlane fan. There's a big Todd McFarlane book we're going to talk about that is on screen right now. We'll talk about later in this video. But for me, it's been cool to find stuff that's a little bit more obscure, a little bit harder to find. It's not expensive. I think I paid like $8 for this. And CLZ and some of the other places recommended that, you know, their set price was somewhere in like the $20 to $30 range, I think, which I felt like was too much. But I got a great deal on it. And I'm very happy to have it. It's cool for me to have a little piece of comics history like that. I like finding some of the first places that people have had their work published. Now, Todd's first actual published work with DC was in issue 13 of Infinity Inc. This is issue 14. The shop I was at did not have issue 13, otherwise I would have bought that too, but this is 14, which is his first cover. It's also very interesting to me because if you look at this cover, what we kind of associate with the distinctive Todd McFarlane style is really not there yet. And I think a big reason for that is that he wasn't inking his own work. You know, this was inked by someone else, and it wasn't until many years later that he was able to ink his own stuff, and that's when his distinct style really comes through. And so it's cool to see kind of how an artist's style evolves over time based on who is involved in making it, who's involved in inking it and coloring it and all that stuff. So yeah, a very neat pickup, a very fun thing to have in the collection. The next book I want to talk about is not a single issue. It's a compendium, actually, so it's a big paperback, and that is Invincible Universe Volume 1. I don't know if they're going to make more volumes of Invincible Universe. This is pretty big. It's about half the size, maybe 2/3 the size of a regular Invincible compendium, and I don't know if there's additional material to print. I'm not that well read, and I haven't cracked this one open yet. I haven't given it a read yet, but I'm excited to read it. And I was going to take a second here to kind of talk about the Invincible show, which I haven't finished the latest season, unfortunately, but also like kind of the broader context in which that show exists now. I think like the cultural tides around superhero media are obviously always changing, always shifting. And so it's interesting for a show like Invincible, which occupies the animated adult cartoon space, which is like there's not many other players there. They did that one with The Boys a while ago that, you know, some people have seen. I have not seen it, but I know some people have watched it. But there's not really anything else in that space that's an animated adult cartoon. So it's interesting to see Invincible take that role and carry that forward, especially as a Robert Kirkman creation, right? We have The Walking Dead, which is like one of the biggest TV shows of all time, period. And then to also have Robert Kirkman's Invincible be animated and have that take a place as a hit show. So it's just interesting to see how comic book adaptations to TV are changing constantly. And it seems like, from what I can tell, reading the room of broader cultural criticism around Invincible, people are not loving the fact that they took such a long time between not only the first and second season, but then also took a big break in between the halves of the second season. That seemed to really not sit well with people. And we're getting things like My Adventures of Superman, which are coming out much faster, even though they have, you know, the same level of animation done on them. So I think that'll be interesting. It will be, I'm curious to see as time goes on how Invincible's place in culture maintains or changes, if people still like it, if people are still interested in new episodes, if it takes a long time to get them, things like that. But I'm very thankful to have Invincible Universe 1, and I'm excited to check it out very soon. Okay, we're going to get into the first of 3 big books. The first of a couple books that took me a long time to get. I really waited on these. I waited until I found a good deal, and I was excited to get them. The first one we're going to talk about, I'm wearing right here, and you can see it on screen, so let me pull it off the wall here. This is Amazing Spider-Man 252. By some accounts, the first appearance of the black suit. Kind of depends what version of history you want to stick to, and that's okay. We will talk about the other first appearance of the black suit in a minute here, but This is ASM 252. This was a huge book for me. Of course, it homages Amazing Fantasy number 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man. Yes, this case is UV protected, so it's hanging on my wall, and it's getting sunlight sometimes, some parts of the day, but it is protected, so you guys in the comments can calm down. No reason to freak out. It is completely safe, and it's fine. And also, it's not this pristine copy. So I've had the opportunity to buy this book a number of times over the last couple years. And most of those times, it would have been a graded copy, or it would have been a copy in really fantastic shape. And the prohibitive factor, of course, at that point was price. I was not interested in buying something that was going to be, inordinately high. I have like my acceptable threshold for what I'm willing to pay for a book. And I can't ever see myself really, breaking the bank to get a book. So I got a great deal on this. It was in a shop here in Seattle, which is where I live. And at Grumpy Old Man's Comics and Collectibles in Ballard in Seattle. Those guys are so great. I highly recommend that shop. If you're in the area, go check them out. They have a fantastic selection of wall books. Really nice guys to talk to. Really enjoy every time I get a chance to go in there and talk with them. They had this book, and I was celebrating. I just got a new job recently, and so I decided that it was worthwhile to kind of treat myself to something special to commemorate it. And this was something I had my eye on for a long time, and it's in good shape. Here, I went ahead and took it out of that protective case so you can see what I'm talking about here. So up in the corner, there's a little bit of wear and tear. That corner is pretty bent. Same with this corner's in good shape. We've got some corner dings. Nothing super obvious. The cover, obviously, it presents incredibly well. And it's such a beautiful cover. Like, it's so iconic. It's so cool. I love the AF-15 homage. It's become one of the most iconic pieces of Spider-Man history. And to me, at least, the condition of a comic book is always going to be like further down the list in terms of if I want to buy it, below things like the price, right? Like the price, who I'm buying it from, like where I'm buying it. If I'm buying it at like a convention and it's a great experience and I get to chat with the guy at the booth or chat with other fans of the convention, like that's going to elevate the experience of getting the book so much. And so there have been a few times I've been lucky enough to do that, where I've been able to get a big book, and I'll tell one of those other stories later in this video in just a minute. But in this specific case, I was commemorating a new job. It was a great moment of being able to celebrate something exciting happening. I had wanted the book forever and got a great deal. So all of the factors converge, and that means that I literally could not care less at all about the condition that the book is in, because it presents so well, and it's never once occurred to me to be like, oh, wow, look at the spine tick. It's like, okay, who cares? That means someone read it. I know I've been pretty open about this on this channel in the past, but I do dislike the almost fetishization of graded books, high quality books, things being in pristine condition when it is a book. It's like the minute a book comes into existence, it is meant to be opened and read. And if that has happened and there's like wear and tear on the book as a result of that, that's what you are buying. But that's my personal opinion. Obviously, do whatever you want, collect whatever you like. I won't judge you for it. I'm just saying, for me personally, it does not matter what condition a book is in, so long as I can still see what book it is. So there it is, my first big book we're going to talk about, ASM 252. First appearance of the Black Suit, very exciting. Okay, next book. Giving you a little hint on screen right now what book we're going to talk about. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I did cover that I purchased this book in my kind of roundup video a few months ago, talking about my year in comics in 2023. So let's go ahead and talk about it. It's also up on my wall here. Of course, it's Secret Wars number 8, the other first appearance of the Black Suit. This is on Battle World. This is during the Secret Wars event. This is the first appearance. This one's very fun to have. For me, it's like part of my big 3 of Spider-Man books, and it's very, very exciting to have. It's definitely, big 3 in terms of the Black Suit, Venom, whatever. Like, if you're looking for books in that storyline, this is obviously in there. And I have a couple other really fun ones that are a part of that story that I don't have hanging on my wall here, but to me represent like that kind of era of Spider-Man with the Black Suit before Venom, which I think is a really interesting and fascinating time in Spider-Man's character. So I think of a book like Amazing Spider-Man 258 with that iconic black and red suit cover, and we get the bombastic Bagman and some other moments in that. And to me, those also exemplify this era of Spider-Man. We have artists like Mike Zeck working on the Black Suit and presenting it in a way that we don't see it much anymore, because now that suit is associated so much with Venom. We don't really see that like clean kind of silhouetted version of the suit anymore, and I really like that style. Also, brief aside here, I do have a rule that I can only buy a t-shirt of a comic book cover if I own that comic book. And so it's a fun part of the process when I get a big book like this that I then get to go buy a t-shirt of it, because I wait until I own the book so that if anyone asks me about it or we talk about the t-shirt, I'm out in public or whatever, then I can be like, oh yeah, and I got my copy in Chicago in 2023 or wherever. So I think that's fun when I can, when I can do that. Keeping in mind what I just said about t-shirts, let's talk about it. This is the big one for a lot of collectors today, and for me, and the reason I started this video talking about Todd McFarlane. That's right. It's right here. It's ASM 300. So here's the thing. This book obviously has this place in culture right now in the comics community where it's kind of become a meme. It's kind of become a joke, and I completely understand that Todd has signed more of these than he hasn't. There are more signed or more graded copies than there are ungraded copies, things like that. There's this hyper desire to have this book. People are chasing it all over the place, and that means the price constantly fluctuates. It goes up and down. It's all over the map. There's this race to find all of his big stuff, and this is obviously this is a pivotal book. Whether or not you want to argue the first appearance of Venom is 2 issues prior or 1 issue prior, okay, sure. I think all of those you have very valid things to say there in that argument, but I do think it's indisputable that this is like our first full character appearance of Venom, right? We get a time to meet him. And then whether or not you like those movies or whatever, Venom is a big character. He's huge. He's probably the second most known Spider-Man villain, I would assume. I think most people could tell you the Green Goblin and then Venom. That would be my assumption. They've made, movies of just Venom that they're horrible, but at least like people see them. They do exist. People know they're out there. So I think there's generally just this knowledge of the character that leads to a desire to find the big book, and this is the big book. And of course, it's an anniversary. It's 300. It's got this iconic cover design. Like, there's so many aspects that make this book desirable. Here's the thing, though. I do not care about any of those things. I don't like Venom as a character. I've never really been a Venom fan. I think he's cool, but I'm not chasing down other Venom books. I'm not really a Venom fan. I'm not somebody who chases Venom content. And also, I am a big Todd McFarlane fan, but that is also not the reason for me to chase this book. I will tell you the reason, and I have talked about this on this channel before, which is that when I was a kid, a couple of times I was given a gift of some stacks of comic books from friends or relatives or whoever. And my parents, with the best of intentions, truly, I do believe that, wanted to kind of protect me from some bad influences or things that they perceived as dangerous for me to read. And so they went through those comic books after I'd had them for a while and I had read them. They decided to kind of do a purge. They went through, and a large amount of them were thrown away. And here's the thing. That in the moment is like, as a kid, you don't really understand because you have comic books left. You're kind of like, oh, I'm sad about that, but I have these other ones I can read. Who cares? As an adult, then you obviously have some pain or some sadness, but more importantly, you start to find out what books you're missing because you read them and you go, oh, I had that one. I remember that story before it got thrown away. And the moment that I realized that I had a copy of Amazing Spider-Man 300 when I was a kid and my parents threw it away, that was a shocking moment. And it's coupled with a fun fact here that I'll show you. So this book right here, the Marvel Superheroes Guidebook, is something I've had since I was 10 years old, I think. Maybe 9. I got it from one of my uncles, and I have always loved this thing. It's black and white. It's just like very cursory kind of encyclopedia information about Marvel superheroes. There's some simple illustrations. And this cover, to me, was always really cool. I always thought that was like one of the best versions of Spider-Man I had ever seen. I didn't know until I was probably 21 years old, and I found this book, and I kept it with me, but I hadn't seen it. It was in a box somewhere for years, and I pulled it back out, and I realized that it was Todd McFarlane, and that his signature is printed on the cover of the book. It's right there. That was when I realized that cover was so memorable to me because it was the cover of Amazing Spider-Man 300. Obviously, now I know it's the cover of Amazing Spider-Man 301, right, which is maybe Todd's second most iconic Spider-Man cover. So the book had stayed with me mentally, and I knew the panels, and I remembered the story, but I didn't realize I had owned a copy of it until I found out years later that it was like Todd McFarlane's biggest issue on Spider-Man ever. So then I chased it, right? Then I was like, all right, well, I would really like to have that book again. I'm vaguely aware that I may have had 299 or 298. I'm not sure. I don't quite remember those, but I know I had 300, and to me, financial aspect aside, it's just become very fun and important for me to chase this for like my nostalgic reasons. And so I picked this up just a little while ago at a convention in Michigan, actually, which is a lot of fun to be able to kind of go in your hometown and pick up the last of my big three. 252, Secret Wars 8, and 300 were my big Spider-Man 3. And as you can see, once I bought it, got to get the shirt to celebrate, which is always fun. Shout out to Hot Topic, honestly, for carrying all three of these shirts. I bought all three of these shirts from Hot Topic online. I didn't go to the store because I'm terrified to be seen in public in a Hot Topic. I mean, who wouldn't be? But still, shout out Hot Topic, I guess, for locking it down with these three iconic covers. And now I proudly hang all three of my big three Spider-Man books right here on my wall so I can see them every single day at my desk. They're an essential piece of my decor, and they're just very important to me. It's cool to have this through line of having this Marvel Superheroes guidebook when I was a kid that is absolutely destroyed, beat up. I mean, the whole thing is just ragged and bent and torn, and to have that iconic image on my wall from issue 300 is very cool to me. And these are the three biggest pieces of my collection, in terms of both cost, because total, it is a bunch of money. But I got good deals on them, and I on the ASM 300 specifically, it has a very visible spine curl, but I don't care. It doesn't matter to me because I wanted the book because of my nostalgia and because of my upbringing and growing up with it. So it was important to me to have that book, and I got it, and that's what matters. And so this is a brief update. Thank you for watching. This is just kind of the most recent big pickups in my comic collecting journey. I have some fun videos planned that I'd like to get knocked out here pretty soon for you guys, and I would love any feedback. I want to know what the biggest comics in your collection are. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what the one that you're either still chasing or that you were able to get. What's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books that would make your collection complete? Would love to know. And until then, I will see you next time.